Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Tadanti Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunatham Jivam Satvedam Swavadudam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sya He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Kopisha Kopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanjakalpatarubhyascha Kirpa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adhara Srivasadi Gaurava Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Shashwin. Thank you so much for the recitation of the wonderful Mangalacharan. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 8, which is the prayers by Queen Kunti. And the text for today, Prabhuji, is text 25. So we hand over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining here today to discuss the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're on a very wonderful, there's many, many wonderful devotees, but we're on a very wonderful section by a very wonderful devotee, Srimati Kunti, Queen Kunti. So seek your blessings, and with your permission, I'll try and facilitate some discussion on this beautiful verse. And I pray that we can come together some mutual understanding of this very famous verse, in fact, and together, hopefully, we can facilitate some discussion and discuss something that may be of benefit. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jeva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nastapraye Vyabresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So we're reading from the first canto, chapter 8, verse 25, chapter entitled Prayers by Queen Kunti. Again, if anyone would like to repeat the verse, I'll leave a little pause. Please do repeat. It's nice that we can all recite. Vipada santuta shashvat
Vipada shantu tva sashvat.
tatra tatra jagat guru
Tatra tatra jagat guru.
bhavato darshanam yatshad
Bhavato darshanam yatsyat.
apunan bhava darshanam.
Apunar bhava darshanam.
Word by word. Vipadaha,
Vipadaha.
calamities.
Calamities.
Santu,
Shantu.
let there be.
Let there be.
Daha, all.
All.
Shashvat,
Shashvat.
again and again.
Again and again.
Tatra,
Tatra.
there.
There.
Tatra,
Tatra.
and there.
And there.
Jagat Guru,
Jagat Guru.
O Lord of the universe.
O Lord of the universe.
Bhavataha,
Bhavata.
your.
Your.
Darshanam,
Darshana.
meeting.
Meeting.
Yat,
Yat.
that which.
That which.
Shat,
Shat.
is. Apunaha,
Apuna.
not again.
Not again.
Bhavadarshanam,
Bhavadarshana.
seeing repetition of birth and death.
Seeing repetition of birth and death.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. Mataji, would you like to read the purport?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Generally, the distressed, the needy, the intelligent, and the inquisitive who have performed some pious activities worship or begin to worship the Lord. Others who are thriving on misdeeds only, regardless of status, cannot approach the Supreme due to being misled by the illusionary energy. Therefore, for a pious person, if there is some calamity, there is no other alternative than to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord means preparing for liberation from birth and death. Therefore, even though there are so-called calamities, they are welcome because they give us an opportunity to remember the Lord, which means liberation. One who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are accepted as the most suitable boat for crossing the ocean of nations, can achieve liberation as easily as one leaps over the holes made by the hoofs of a calf. Such persons are meant to reside in the abode of the Lord, and they have nothing to do with the place where there is danger in every step. This material world is certified by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita as a dangerous place full of calamities. Less intelligent persons prepare plans to adjust to those calamities without knowing that the nature of this place, it is itself full of calamities. They have no information of the abode of the Lord, which is full of bliss and without trace of calamity. The duty of a sane person, therefore, is to be undisturbed by the worldly calamities, which are sure to happen in all circumstances. Suffering all sorts of unavoidable misfortunes, one should make progress in spiritual realization because That is the mission of human life. The spirit soul is transcendental to all material calamities. Therefore, the so-called calamities are called false. A man may see a tiger swallowing him in a dream, and he may cry for this calamity. Actually, there is no tiger and there is no suffering. It is simply a case of dreams. In the same way, all calamities of life are said to be dreams. If someone is lucky enough to get in contact with the Lord by devotional service, it is all gain. Contact with the Lord by any one of the 9 devotional services is always a forward step on the path going back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maji, and thank you so much, Shashin Prabhu, for the wonderful Mangala Charan. So, yeah, just to repeat the verse, Rubata Shantuta Shashvat, Tattata Jagat Guru, Bhavato Darshanam Yatshat, Apunar Bhava Darshanam. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated birth and death. It's a very, very famous verse. Don't feel so much qualified to comment on it. But there is a lot to extract from Srila Prabhupada's purport. And I'll try my best to facilitate some discussion and churn a little bit of this nectar which Queen Kunti is speaking. So in layman terms, as an introduction, I just what is she saying here? She's asking for bad things to happen. She's saying to Krishna, calamities. So not just little bad things like, oh, I hit my foot on the door or something like that. No, calamities. This is really horrible things which has happened. And earlier you've been discussing in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the earlier verses, they've been described how Krishna protected them, but during really horrible, difficult circumstances, like the house being burned, for example, loss of relatives, just so many. I mean, it's in one sense, it's a tragedy what has happened to the Pandavas. If you look at it purely from just a material perspective, it's a horrible, horrible tragedy. Yet Queen Kunti is saying, let this happen again and again and again. And in one sense, even if we're practicing Krishna consciousness, it can be hard to fathom. How could one ask for more horrible things to happen? So I wanted to kind of churn this a little bit and get into the mindset of Queen Kunti. But in that kind of context and in the running theme, I wanted to talk about in life, we've discussed before, bad things happen. That's just guaranteed, whether we want them to or not. We cannot avoid it. So how to deal with life, how to deal with reversals in life. So when bad things do inevitably happen, how should we deal with that, knowing the science of Krishna consciousness? And then, so some practical things I'll quickly touch on with reference to the Bhagavad Gita. But then later in the purport, Prabhupada talks about, in the very last sentence of the purport, he talks about the 9 processes of devotional service. So what are these? And I wanted to talk about this concept of prevention rather than a cure. There's a saying, prevention is better than a cure. So when bad things are going to happen, we know that's coming. So how can we prepare for this? So that's the kind of main chunk of what I wanted to explore with you all today. So Queen Kunti, she's talking about her calamities and she wants them to happen again and again. And in the purport, Prabhupada talks about 4 types of people who come to Krishna, which, as we know from study of the Bhagavad Gita, and he says here, it's the distress. So some looking for some relief from material distress, the needy, the intelligent, and the acquisitive. So generally, people for material gain, people in distress, people who are inquisitive, and then people seeking the absolute kind of truth. But I was listening to a class by His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj, and people, if you're going to Krishna for something like that, then he will help you. And that's a good point to start. And as I've mentioned previously, if we're desiring something, then we should go to Krishna rather than demigods or anyone else. However, Krishna isn't so, he's a person, he's a supreme person, but he's a person. And just for one moment, think about how you feel when someone calls you and they always want something. You know, they just want something. So they'll call you up, Ore Govinda Prabhu Hare Krishna, and then you answer the phone and you see the number, you think, oh, I wonder what they want. Them again, you know. So in that way, Krishna, because he's so kind, he's so benevolent, he will help. But ultimately, you want to get to the level where we give something to Krishna, not to get something. We're going there to connect with him, to have a relationship with him. And just like when we have someone who calls and they just want to see, hey, how, Prabhu Mataji, how are you? Is there anything I can do to serve you? You know, well, we haven't spoken in some time. We should meet sometime. Or I have some service for you. Could you help me with that? And like this, we feel so much more favorable. So in this way also, Krishna, he feels so much more favorable to us when we are there to offer some service. I'd written down a little story, which I'm sure I've told you before, but I think it's very applicable in relation to calamities. So I'm going to tell you it again. I first heard it in a course that I did many years ago with His Holiness Swam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj. So Maharaj was telling this story of a guru and his disciple. And the disciple wanted to know about life. So so the guru said, okay, bring me 3 glasses of boiling water, bring me a boiled potato, bring me some steel wool, and bring me some herbs. And the disciple was very confused, but he brought them anyway. So he laid down the 3 glasses of boiling water, and the guru said, yes, good. Now put each of the items in the glasses. So he put the boiled potato in the hot water and it fell apart. He put the steel wool in the boiling water and it became closed and very hard. And he put the herbs in the boiling water and a fragrance just filled the room and the herbs fragrance became enhanced. And the guru explained to the disciple, he said, this is like life. The boiling water represents difficulties. Some people, when they face difficulties, they like the boiled potato. They fall apart when they face difficulties. And isn't it true that, you know, we see this in our lives? I've seen it. I've probably fallen apart at some point in my life also with some difficulties. Yeah, some people, they just fall apart. They face extreme difficult circumstances, loss of job, loss of finances, loss of relationship, loss of a loved one, and they just fall apart. And sometimes they're never the same again. The next item was steel wool. And the guru explained, yes, so some people, when they face difficulties, they become very hard-hearted and closed off to others. And I've also seen this where some people, they may experience an extreme difficulty, traumatic event in their life, and then they become very closed off to others. They're unwilling to open their heart to others again. They become very harsh and hard-hearted. And it's said that devotees, they're very soft-hearted. And why is that? Because what is soft is mukhan. And who's the mukhan chore? Is Krishna. So we need to become soft-hearted to for us folks, so Krishna can steal our hearts. So being hard-hearted, it can be easily done in one sense. We become afraid, and so many different things can happen to us mentally as a result of difficulties that we can become afraid and paranoid and unwilling to take a step forward in our lives. Then the guru said, but then the herbs, when they faced the hot water, the flavor was enhanced. So like this, some people, they face difficulties and they use those difficulties as an opportunity to advance themselves. Just like the herbs, the flavor becomes enhanced. The same way the characteristics of a person become more developed, especially a devotee, who will use those calamities, use those difficulties to advance themselves. So that's like an overview of how we can view difficulties in life. They're easy to say, difficult to do. So what are the steps we can do when we're facing difficulties? Well, practically first, if we look at one person who we know quite well, or we're getting to know quite well, in the context of Krishna consciousness, was Arjun. So Arjun was faced with a massive difficulty. He steps forwards on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he sees many, many people that he cares deeply for. And in a few moments, he's going to have to go and kill them. Now, just for a moment, I heard one devotee say that it's good to try and get into, as we're reading the Shastra, try and get into the mindset of the person who we're reading about. So for a moment, just take a moment to think. Imagine you are Arjun, and opposite you is people you love, people that you've grown up with, relatives, cousins, maybe grandparents, teachers, people that you really, really respect and admire. And then imagine moments later, literally moments later, you're going to be fighting with them. Not just fighting, you're going to have to kill them. So when we think of it, put it in that perspective, we can see that Arjun, understandably was very, very distraught. And so, but he's got someone to help him, thankfully. He's got Krishna, his dear friend. And in this instance, Krishna plays the role of a guru. So how does Arjun deal with this? Because this is, the Bhagavad Gita Arjun was a pure devotee. And Srila Prabhupada famously says, there's no ignorance on the part of Arjun, but it was spoken for our benefit. So we only have to look at the very first chapter in the beginning of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where we can see how Arjun is lamenting, and he's expressing how he feels to Krishna. So he's expressing, that I'm very distressed here. I'm very upset. One of the most my favorite verses from the Bhagavad Gita, verse 7 in the second chapter. Karpanya dosapata svabhava pachamitam dharma sumuda chetaha yashtraya nishitam bruhitan me shishyaste ham shadimam tvam prapanam. So Arjun is saying here, now I am confused about what it is that I should do. And he refers to himself as overtaken by miserly weakness. He's confused about what his duty is, and he's surrendering at this moment to Krishna. He's asking Krishna, please tell me what it is that I should do. But in the first chapter, if you read the first chapter, Arjuna is expressing his emotions. He's telling Krishna how he feels. And then once Krishna has listened to him, then Arjuna he's pacified in the sense that then he's come to the point where he can hear from Krishna. And he readily asks Krishna, okay, please instruct me. That's what he says to him. Please instruct me. So we know the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. We know, in theory at least, can't say we know in theory the material world is temporary, and the material world is full of misery and bad things are going to happen. But the soul is eternal, and we know the philosophy. But in this moment, something practical I would say is be honest about your level of realization. So question for everyone on the call is, do you ever feel anger? Do you ever feel angry at someone? Do you ever feel sad? Do you ever feel sadness? Do you ever feel jealous of someone? Ever felt jealous or envious of people? And if you want to know if you've realized, you've realized that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you've realized that the material world is temporary, not just theoretically, but fully realized it, then ask yourself, do you ever feel any of those things? I definitely do. And if you do, it means that you haven't fully realized this, which means you need to deal with yourself and your own mind at the level which you're at, which means, just like Arjun did, before we can receive any hard philosophy, we need to at least, I don't know if you've ever seen anyone who's in a state of panic, who's in a state of high levels of distress and anxiety. I've experienced this with people. I'm also a trainee counselor as well. So, and as counselors, some people, they say that, oh, counselors, they just give advice. And when as soon as you get almost on day one of counseling training, and they say, never give advice. So the point is actually, even when we're speaking to ourselves, what to speak of when we're speaking to others, when we're facing calamities and we're feeling these difficult emotions, best not to go straight to, okay, but wait a minute, the world is just temporary. And, oh, wait a minute, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't need to worry. He will look after me. First, acknowledge how we're feeling. Maybe express that to someone in confidence, how we're feeling. And by releasing this emotion, maybe some people, they like to write, you can write about it. That's great. And acknowledge, okay, this is a difficult situation I'm facing. It's not easy. I'm in some pain here. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling frustrated. And then once a person is expressed, and if you've ever experienced this, once a person has just expressed themselves, suddenly they become more receptive to receiving instruction. And this was Arjun as well. He expressed himself to Krishna. Then he says, please instruct me, in the 2nd chapter, verse 7. So this is something practical first, which I just wanted to touch upon in relation to the Bhagavad Gita, and it's so important. In the very next verse, Arjun says, I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. So he's basically saying, you could give me the entire heavens and I still wouldn't be able to get rid of this horrible grief that I'm feeling. So yes, even Arjun couldn't get rid of it just like that. What to speak of us? And I know I just really wanted to touch on this point because I know in my life, sometimes I've minimized how I've been feeling. And I thought, oh, well, the material world is temporary. But then I still felt sad. And I felt guilty for feeling sad. And I think, no, this is okay. It's okay to feel sad. We're not at the stage of, we're conditioned souls. That's okay. But then by revealing our mind, by expressing these emotions, we're able to kind of bring our minds out of that and see the forest from the tree, so to speak. And then we can look at the example of many, many great devotees like Arjun, like Parikshit Maharaj, who are wonderful listeners. And the very next point then is to, then we're able to hear instruction from devotees, from the Shastra, and recognize first how to act in the particular calamity that we're facing, and then remind us of the duality of this world and so forth. And then that can help us pull us out. So we tend to become distressed. That's true. Now, Srila Prabhupada actually refers to a nice story. He tells this story of a king. So this king was very, very prosperous. He had like a wonderful kingdom. He had loyal members of his kingdom, a beautiful family, and everything in the kingdom was running very, very nicely, very, very nicely. But the problem was the king then became a little bored. So he became bored with his kingdom. And so he approached one of his ministers, and he said to his minister, he said, look, I'm getting a bit bored here. So can you, I want you to give me something which when I'm happy will make me sad. And when I'm sad, it will make me happy. So just to repeat, the king asked his minister, being bored with his kingdom and his opulence, said, when I'm happy, give me something that makes me sad. And when I'm sad, give me something that makes me happy. So the minister, he was a very, very intelligent individual, but he was a bit baffled initially. He was thinking, oh, what? That's a very, very difficult thing to do. But then after giving it some thought, he presented the king with a ring, and the ring had an inscription on it. And he said to the king, he said, whenever you feel happy, read this instruction read your ring. And whenever you feel sad, read the ring. And what was inscribed on that ring was this, 4 words, this soon will end. So in this way, whenever the king was feeling happy, he would look on his ring and he would be reminded that this happiness soon would end. Same way, whenever he was feeling sad, he would read on his ring, this soon will end, and reminded that his distress would soon end. So this ties in conjunction with the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter, where Krishna says that one needs to be equipoised in tolerate the dualities of happiness and distress. I was listening to a brief snippet from His Holiness Shiva Maharaj, and he was discussing how to deal with calamities. So I've talked about a brief, and we've discussed in other sanghas some practical things of how to deal with reversals, especially from an emotional point of view when we're distressed or others are distressed. But as I mentioned, prevention is better than a cure. So how can we become immune from this happiness and distress? Because if we're constantly affected by happiness or distress, either we can't practice Krishna consciousness, we can't advance. In fact, in the very next verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the purport, Prabhupada actually says that 4 principles of material advancement will make it disqualifications on the path of spiritual progress. So high parentage, so we've been born to really high social status, good wealth, high education, and attractive beauty. So these 4 things can actually take us away from advancing on the spiritual path. So whether it's happiness or distress, we're going to struggle in Krishna consciousness if we can't become equipoised. So how do we do that? So His Holiness Shiva Maharaj briefly explained, gave the analogy of the ocean, and that there are many storms happening out at sea. However, if one is deep in the ocean, there's animals which live very, very deep in the ocean. They don't even feel the effects of the storm. In the same way, if we're able to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the depths of our consciousness, deeper and deeper into the depths of Krishna consciousness, and dive deep into this ocean of spirituality, then we won't be so affected by the material ups and downs that we face within life. Maharaj uses the term progressive inner development. So slowly, we're developing our character through connecting and discussing and reflecting. We're able to see, okay, I talked a little bit earlier about when we feel anger, when we feel sadness, when we feel jealous, when we feel envious, are we able to take a step back, reflect on this and think, okay, why is it that I felt this way? Why do I not need to feel this way any further? And like that, we can gradually advance our Krishna consciousness. A long time ago, I gave the analogy of how sometimes something will happen to us and we react without thinking. This is because we've been programmed to think in a certain way. And on our thought process, from the action, the thought process goes straight down a highway. Highways go very, very fast, or motorways, or whatever you call them. They're highway, they high speed. And that's our thinking. However, to rewire this, we need to create different ways of thinking and create a new path. Now, initially, this can be difficult, when paths have been gone along for a long time, they're overgrown with weeds, and you can't go very fast down this. It may take some effort. We may feel angry at a certain point or sad, and it may take us some time to think, oh, actually, I don't need to feel this way. I can deal with this situation. The situation is temporary. But as we practice thinking in this way, slowly, those difficult pathways will become highways. We'll be able to think like that very quickly. Reversely, those highways, what happens when roads are unused? They become deteriorated, they become overgrown, they become difficult to travel down. So eventually, we won't be so affected by material things and thinking and lamenting and hankering, and instead we'll be going quickly, our thought processes will go quickly down a highway to Krishna. So how can we build this highway, so to speak? How can we start building these highways in our mind? So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada refers to the 9 processes of devotional service. And later in the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj actually reveals these in a wonderful verse. It's in the 7th canto, 5th chapter. Prahlad Maharaj says, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Arshanam Vandanam Dashyam, Sakyam At Mani Vedanam. So Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada says, even if we do one of these, it's great. And this will help us and protect us. But if we can practice all 9 and see, can we engage with all these 9 processes within our lives? So I have a question for you, all of you, is that it's important to practice these 9 processes of devotional service, but is there a quick way for all of us to engage in all 9 processes in one go in our lives? What's a practical way we could do that? Anyone can guess what I'm talking about?
So chanting the holy name.
So is chanting of the holy name, is that engaging in all 9 processes of devotion?
If you're chanting with congregation, if you're chanting with others, so you're hearing Shravanam, Kirtanam, that's chanting, Vishnu Smaranam, so you're remembering. Next one is Pada Sevanam, so I don't know, Archanam, Vandanam, so you're praying. I don't know about Sakyam though. Dasyam, yes, you're surrendering to the Lord. And then yes, Atman Nivedan, you're surrendering again, but no, probably not all the 9, Prabhuji. Maybe I'm wrong. So
no, good. It's a good try, Manji. Definitely, I think chanting Panchali Manji. Thank you so much for that contribution. Is chanting of the holy names. We can, but I'll be honest with you, and I'm just going to speak practically. I don't always remember Krishna when I'm chanting. I try to, but maybe thinking of other things, or maybe just at that moment focusing on the meaning of the mantra as opposed to thinking about its pastimes. But there's something we can all do practically. And now, especially in this age of Zoom, we can all do. I'll give you a further clue. You can either do it every day, or you can do it once a week or once a month. But it's something you can all engage in, and which covers the 9 processes of devotional service. Anyone?
Sadhu Sangha.
So yes, Avinash Prabhuji's got closer. So Sadhu Sangha is there, but what I'm specifically was referring to was the morning program, ISKCON morning program, devised by Srila Prabhupada. So, many years ago, I've talked about how I was so blessed to spend 2.5 months in Chowpatty Ashram, a Radhagopinath Mandir in Mumbai. And I was quite new in Krishna consciousness then, so probably a little too new to be a brahmachari, but Krishna's mercy, I got the opportunity, so I took it. But I got to India and I was I was suffering badly from like jet lag, and I was struggling to sleep in the ashram. And as a brahmachari, you're required to go to morning program every single day, without fail, full morning program. That's from Mangal Arati to the end of the class. And but I was feeling very tired, and it's funny to admit this now. So what I would do is some days I'd feel very tired, or I'd only slept like an hour or two. So I would go to Tulsi Arti, and then I would sneak off and go to sleep for a little bit. And but my authority in the ashram at the time was an amazing devotee, someone I very much have learned a great deal from, and I look up to very much. His name was Krishna Prabhu, and he's always keeping an eye on us, especially us guys visiting from the UK. And I was asleep, and he tapped me on the shoulder, and I was thinking, oh, Prabhuji, why are you making me go morning program? I'm so tired. And he said, look, just come to the morning program, and then you can go to sleep afterwards. He said, but just no matter how tired you are, just come to the morning program. And this is emphasized so much. Attend the morning program. And only afterwards I realized, that this morning program has been designed so nicely by Srila Prabhupada that actually all the 9 processes of devotion are within this. So we offer flowers to the Guru, we offer flowers to Prabhupada, we're singing many prayers, and they're doing the arti there, and we can get the blessings from the arti. The arti is offered at that moment. We're discussing the pastimes, the Srimad Bhagavatam class every single day, or the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we're hearing about the Lord, we're discussing the Lord. And by discussing the Lord, we're thinking about the Lord. We're chanting, we're singing, we're dancing, we're chanting about the Lord, and we're in the association of devotees. So this is all combined. What Panchali Mataji said, rightly so, was chanting. What Avinash Prabhuji kindly also said, Sadhu Sangha. But we're getting all of this in one in the morning program. So this is why it's a lot of what I can remember in Krishna consciousness is actually from attending morning program for the best part of a year. And I would say that year in Krishna consciousness, honestly speaking, was probably more than 10 years on the outside. And the reason being, I remember also a really nice devotee, I'll maybe try and get him to speak here one time. His name is Vaishnav Sarabhoma Prabhu. And the first time I went to Vrindavan, I was quite new again in Krishna consciousness, and I spent about a month there. And I was asking Prabhuji, okay, what shall I do? Where shall I go visit? Shall I hear about this pastime, go to this place? Nanagar, where shall I go? And Vaishnav Sarabhoma Prabhu, what he said to me, he said, get yourself to morning program every day, and anything else you do is a bonus. So again, as grihastas, it's probably not practical to go to morning program every single day. We have to, we have many commitments, family commitments, work commitments. But whether it's once a month or whether it's once a week, if we can somehow make it, or we can even watch online as well. The facility is there to watch online now as well, and become engaged in that consciousness. Maybe sometimes I live a bit far away from the manor now, so I can't go there as much as I would like. But sometimes I'm watching the morning program, and I'm just watching all the devotees singing and dancing, and I'm sometimes just visualizing myself being there with them, And like this, if we engage in this, it's a quick way to engage in the 9 processes devotional service all in one go. And from a practical point, at home, it's good if you don't have deities, at least if we can have pictures of Krishna, and we can learn a little bit about deity worship, and we can start initially worshiping pictures of Krishna and eventually invite a deity into our homes, and discussing Krishna, remembering Krishna like this. This will, by discussing Krishna, reading his pastimes, reading about him, hearing about him, discussing him, this will help us to remember. But ultimately, if we're engaged in all 9 processes of devotional service as much as possible, what will happen is we'll start to remember Krishna in times of happiness or distress. And if we're able to connect these difficulties in relation to Krishna and see with what's known as Shastra Chakshush, this literally means through the eyes of Shastra, then when we face difficulties, and I'm only speaking from the theory, I can't say I've realized this fully, but as much as we can, see our difficulties through the eyes of the Shastras, through the Srimad Bhagavatam, through the Bhagavad Gita, and see how devotees reacted in their times of difficulty, how they turned to prayer for guidance, how they expressed their emotion, how they turned to devotees for help, how they asked their guru, how they asked Krishna for help, and how eventually that realization was actually able to bring them closer to Krishna because they depended on Krishna in that moment. And they realized only Krishna could get them out of it. And that's ultimately the point we're all trying to get to, like Queen Kunti. So we discussed kind of the amazingness of Queen Kunti as she's praying for more difficulties. And now this is a very, very elevated state of consciousness. And we talked about how if we don't deal with difficulties in the right way, then we can either become we can fall apart, we can become very hard-hearted, and that's not favorable for us to advance in spiritual life, not even in material life, what to speak of spiritual life. So it's important that we acknowledge where we're at. We acknowledge that we're feeling angry or sad, and that's okay. You know, Arjun was feeling sad. We can seek advice. We can get rid of those, process those emotions, then we're receptible to this advice. But as I said, prevention is better than a cure. And by continually observing ourselves, by continually seeing, okay, when was, when I'm angry, why am I so angry at this person? And I'm sad, why do I feel so sad? And connecting this to Krishna consciousness and keep trying to practice these 9 processes of devotional service, we can remember Krishna during these difficult moments. And slowly, as we go deeper and deeper into the ocean of devotion, we become less affected, just like if we're situated deep in the ocean, we wouldn't even feel the storms above. So these are a few thoughts on this amazing deep verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'd like to thank you so much for your kind attention. Please forgive me for any mistakes, and welcome at this time any corrections, any comments, or any questions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, thank you very much, especially for the glories of the morning program, attending the morning program, and putting everything in context of what we are doing, and also emphasizing that it could be once a week, once a month, once a fortnight, but do it at least once, and then you'll touch all the 9 devotional activities that we are supposed to do. Are there any questions or comments for Prabhuji? People are still thinking about the questions. This is such a beautiful verse, and Queen Kunti is keeping on asking for calamities, and so that Krishna is with her all the time. But Prabhuji, I just wanted some clarification on this translation, so that we no longer see repeated births and deaths. So was there an ulterior motive by Queen Kunti to perform devotional service, or going through the calamities? Give me calamities so that I don't see repeated birth and deaths. Is that the way you should pray? That there is something, there should be an outcome?
Thank you so much, Mataji, for wonderful questions. So just to repeat, if I understand correctly, within the verse, Queen Kunti is saying, I wish that all these calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you, means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. So for Queen Kunti, she's at that level, she's a pure devotee of the Lord, but she's also saying that when she faces calamities, it reminds her of Krishna. She tends to turn to Krishna. So because she wants to see calamities, she wants to see calamities again and again, so she could think of Krishna again and again and again and again. And if she's able to think of Krishna, what do we know from Bhagavad Gita? That if whatever one thinks of at the moment of death, that is their next destination. So if one has spent their whole life in calamities thinking of Krishna, basically this whole life is preparing for that moment of death. So that's what she's praying for, that she can constantly face calamities, so she constantly thinks of Krishna, so that the moment that she dies, she will no longer have to take birth again, because she'll be thinking of Krishna at the moment of death. That's extrapolating that. Now, in terms of our own prayers, yes, we should pray for, I think especially the most elevated devotees won't even pray for, some devotees won't even pray for death. They just want to pray that they're always in the association of devotees and that they're always engaged in devotional service. But for us, depending on where we're at, I think prayers can be personal. So depending, I think it's important, to look at these devotees from the Bhagavatam, but also examine ourselves and pray, to just to connect to Krishna in whatever capacity that means for us. So yeah, sometimes, I'm definitely not at the level where I've got enough calamities. Thank you very much. But that may, if there's too much calamity for me, I would not think of Krishna. It would take me away from him. So for me, I personally, I pray for Krishna. Please help me remember you when I'm facing difficulty, because I tend to forget you when I face difficulty and become overwhelmed. That's my conditioning. Krishna, please give me the strength to overcome difficulties like this. So I think it's personal. But ultimately, yes, just we want to pray to remember Krishna. That's always important, because we spent so many lifetimes forgetting him, and so we want to remember him as much as possible. And this is what the 9 processes of devotional service are also doing, is they're helping us ultimately to think of Krishna. When we're serving him, we think of Krishna. When we're talking about him, we think of Krishna. When we're serving him, we think of Krishna. And in this way, we're preparing. Well, basically, this whole life is an exam. So we're studying right now. And the way we study is practice for the final test is the 9 processes of devotional service. So when we if we do exactly follow the instructions of Srila Prabhupada to the T, and when it comes to that final test, we'll pass with flying colors.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that explanation. Vishakama, could you kindly unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
I just wanted to say, this Queen Kunti prayed to the Lord saying, give me calamities. Isn't it in her case that Krishna was there around? So obviously whenever there are difficulties, he would be there. But in our case, when we get calamities, I don't know, this is my personal experience. I will just get so disheartened, and that devotional chanting which I'm doing and remembering the Lord will be all with anxiety and worry that will this happen, or how will this happen? And then loving Krishna, because the whole point is chanting is thinking of the Lord and like expressing your love towards him. Now when you are so worried and anxious, would you really think of loving Krishna? You would just be asking for forgiveness or whatever that may be, or so I don't know in what context. With Kunti Maharani, Krishna was around. So say for example a calamity came, he would be there to give them some form of assistance. But in our case, it's like our whole sadhana will be disrupted. So I don't know. I think this more applies, this is my opinion, to somebody who doesn't believe in Krishna, who doesn't believe in God. And somebody, then a calamity comes, and then at that point you just want to, anybody says do this, you would do it. And that would apply, because a calamity, they will start chanting, you'll get better, then they will do that. But in a devotee like us, who are we know the philosophy and we're trying to remember Krishna, and when a calamity comes, I would just feel guilty that, oh Krishna, look, I'm bothering you, I'm just asking for something from you, rather than, and it would be like a selfish devotion rather than a selfless devotion. I don't know, I just want your opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for I really appreciate that honest kind of sharing, and it's important. Yeah, it's really important to discuss. So if I understand correctly, is Vishaka Mataji saying, one, when Queen Kunti was there, Krishna was he's not just a supreme personality of Godhead, he was there. He's a nephew, he was physically there. So when she called for him, he would come and help her. And actually, though, for us practicing Krishna consciousness, I haven't seen Krishna. He's not my nephew. He's not my cousin. He's not around. So if I call for him, he's not suddenly going to come and help me out. And the other point Mataji made is, she feels guilty if she, when we face difficulties, we face a lot of anxiety, and in that moment we can't really, turn to Krishna, and we also feel guilty to turn to Krishna. So a lot to extract there. And what I'm going to say here is even in the pastime of Queen Kunti, Draupadi, whatever, Krishna was around, but he wasn't always right there to save them, but he appeared. So whether it's Draupadi, he wasn't there when she was being disrobed. He wasn't physically present, but she depended on him, and he appeared. And the point there is, in the same way, okay, so there's one thing here, is that we do, as devotees, we are taught to depend on Krishna. So that is there, and he is here, like he's here within our heart as Paramatma, but he will come in one form or another. And I've experienced this to some degree in my own life. To give some practical things, I've been, like for example, I was going through a really rough time, and I said, Krishna, just give me a sign that that you're still there, because I'm losing, I had some bad experiences with devotees, and I just kept seeing devotees everywhere. I know another devotee who was going through a really difficult time, and then they were working in a charity shop. They thought they'd help out in a charity shop, and in the charity shop they just started coming across loads of clothes with the number either 108 or with Krishna on the actual clothes themselves. What are the chances like that? And he sends us subtle signs, because we're not so pure, we can't fully comprehend him, but we can start to see Krishna acting in our lives in different ways. So it is important that we, when we're feeling distressed, we try and think, okay, how can I, it is okay to turn to Krishna in those moments, because that's where we're at. We shouldn't think, oh, he's God, he's limited. And ultimately we want to get to the point where we do solely depend on him. Even Prabhupada, pure devotee, what did he say when he landed in the Bowery, horrible place in New York, where it's full of drug addicts and crime and everything? He said to Krishna, Krishna, I don't know why you brought me here, but it must be for some reason, so I'm going to depend on you. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. But another important point, which I think Mataji really addressed here, is that we're conditioned souls. We're not pure devotees yet. So we feel difficult emotions when we go through when we face difficulties. If something goes wrong in our lives, materially, health-wise, it could be any category, could be even something minute, but for us it feels something major. So then in those moments we may feel a great deal of anxiety, and I'm no exception. I felt great deals of anxiety at certain moments in my life, and I still do. But in those moments, first we have to deal with the emotion, like Arjun did. If Krishna just started saying to him straight away, Dahinasmin Yatha, and started hammering him with philosophy, it wasn't going to work, I think because we're in a Sangha format, I think I feel comfortable to share. I won't share the devotee's name, but there was a devotee once from our community, and this devotee, their relation, they were about to get married, and their relationship broke down, and they're very, very upset, as you can imagine. And they approached some devotees for help, and they said, I'm feeling so bad. I just feel sad all the time. I feel like crying all the time. I feel anxious. And the devotees in that instance told her to just read more Bhagavatam and chant more rounds. Now, I'm not saying, that's the wrong answer for everyone, but what I would say in this particular instance, and in many instances, that's not going to help, because we're not chanting purely. So if one's just thinking and lamenting about the things which are affecting them, then that's what they're going to think about when they're chanting. And that's not going to help relieve that. Instead, what we need to do is find some relief for the difficulty within our mind that we're facing, like Arjun did. He revealed his mind, he expressed his emotion to Krishna first, and then he was able to receive instruction and things like that. I think it's so important that we don't think that, we're like Queen Kunti, who's a very, very advanced devotee and can think of Krishna immediately. We may not be at that stage, but that's okay. That is okay. First, we need to deal with the emotion. And this is where the Bhagavad Gita comes in, because Bhagavad Gita was spoken for us. So it's teaching us here, okay, look, I'm feeling so sad. I'm feeling bewildered. I'm not sure what to do at this moment. Can someone just listen to me? And then Arjun actually, he says, if this goes wrong, then, he gives many arguments of the things that could go wrong in society. So we can express all our doubts and all our fears to someone in confidence. And then once we've expressed everything that we feel, and someone's able to hear us, then we're able to receive, and then we're able to connect with Krishna. So that's my kind of limited understanding. And I hope that helps, Mataji. But ultimately, we are, regardless of whether Krishna is, our close, intimate friend, or where he's our relative, he is there in some capacity, but we have to deal with it doesn't mean we ignore our material problems. We deal with those first, and then we can connect with Krishna. A bit of a long-winded answer, sorry, Mataji, but I hope that was of some help.
Prabhu, thanks.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Arya Govind Prabhuji, kindly unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Dandavat Pranam. Thanks for the wonderful class. Okay, my questions are also relating to Queen Kunti's, this drastic, request to Krishna that give more calamities. Okay, we were all discussing about, how anyone could ask calamities to come to gain gain bhakti to Krishna, or gain, to get liberation from birth and death. Okay, that's a really harsh, ask. Even even if being a aunt of Krishna, so that's really a hard ask. And then she knew that Krishna will be there whenever calamities are going to come. But as we were speaking in relation to us where we are now in Kali Yuga, and then we are having more doubts than answers to many of our questions. So we don't have self-belief, and we don't have belief in the Shastras. We don't believe in the devotee community. We have more doubts than answers. So how do we relate this request of Kunti to our lives? So I was just wanting to contemplate on this.
Well, deep question, Hare Govinda Prabhuji. Thank you so much for that wonderful question. Don't feel qualified to answer, but I'll try and just give some thoughts. So essentially, Prabhuji is saying, how can we relate to this? Because, we have enough trouble as it is. We know in the theory, and we may know Bhagavatam, we may know Bhagavad Gita, we know the theory, but we don't to say that we have heartfelt, heart deep faith in the Shastra, heartfelt deep in Krishna, faith in Krishna. It's very honest of you to say. I can definitely say it's not there yet. So then how do we understand Queen Kunti's mindset? She's asking for more calamities, and how can we even relate to this? So the way we relate to this is that first, the thought that came to mind initially as you were asking the question is what makes us, it's very Krishna consciousness is a very personal process. So within the rules and regulations, what Prabhupada gives, what Rupa Goswami gives, and a wonderful book I'd recommend for everyone, The Nectar of Devotion, where it gives elaborates on these 64 principles within devotional service, but it's very within those, it's very personal. So for some people, Queen Kunti, she's a pure devotee. Let's just so she's pure. So but still within her relationship with Krishna, what helps her as a person on a personal level, she has a tendency, she's saying, basically, if we look at the opposite, when things are going too well, I forget Krishna. That's basically what she's saying. She's saying, when things are going well, Krishna, I just forget all about you. But when things go bad, Krishna, I turn to you, because that's my tendency as a person. So please make things bad for me, because I don't want to forget you. And when you think about it, that's our position. But the details are different, but the principle is the same. So the details, Kunti, she forgets Krishna when calamities happen. Sorry, when good things, when calamities don't happen. But she remembers Krishna and she turns to Krishna when things happen again and again. That's her tendency. For our tendency, I'll speak for myself personally. I'll say, Krishna, you know, he definitely is giving me some purification for sure. Everyone in here is getting purified. But sometimes I'm like, okay, Krishna, if you give me just, we can test Krishna. We can say, oh, look, Krishna, I'm going through a rough time at the moment. I'm going to turn to you. I don't fully believe in you, but I'm going to turn to you anyway. I'm going to keep practicing. I'm going to take advice from devotees. I'm going to say what you said to do in the Bhagavatam. I'm going to test you. And if things go worse from here, see you later. You know, we can test Krishna like that. And that will deepen our faith. But we have to examine what makes us turn to Krishna. And ultimately, what we're all trying to do is remember him. So sometimes we could think, okay, look, Krishna, my material situation is really low at the moment. And it will help me remember you if it's a bit better. So we can pray for that. And then when that happens, we can, you know, later in the Bhagavatam, in the very next verse, verse 26, Prabhupada, as I mentioned, says that too much material opulence is actually, it says, don't be discouraged by material impoverishment, but these four things, high parentage, good wealth, high education, attractive beauty, can be disqualifications for the progress on spiritual advancement. So too much opulence, not good. Too much calamity also, not good, depending on where our consciousness is. So this is the principle, is to examine, okay, what helps us remember Krishna and it personally. And in terms of that, and see Queen Kunti as one particular amazing personality who at her high level in calamity, she can remember Krishna. And we'd all love to get to that. But if we're not there, that's also okay. That's my limited understanding of how to take that. Does that help at all, Prabhuji?
Yes. Makes a lot of sense, Prabhu. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you so much.
Thank you so much,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I know that we have overstretched our time, but we have one last question, Prabhuji.
Hare
Can
Krishna.
Avinash Prabhu ask his question, please? Avinash Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. I just wanted to comment, actually. Thank you very much for your class, Kamal Prabhu. It's just, you have touched on it, about when the calamities come. What do we do? I just was contemplating or just thinking about this. When I was thinking about this, to say people in distress, Artha, Arthati, Jignasu, and Gyani, those four people, they approach Krishna. And when they approach Krishna, and the example which comes into my mind is Dhruva Maharaj. So Dhruva Maharaj was looking for a kingdom. Yeah, he was looking to become a Raja.
Yeah.
And his Guru Maharaj, Narad Muni, he instructed him, sing Om Namo chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he went along and he went through quite a lot of austerity just to get a kingdom. But because he was chanting and Lord gave him the darshan, he said, I was looking for the broken pieces of glasses and I got the diamond. So the thing is, there are different ways of approaching the Lord. Sometimes you can be distressed, but the chanting is so important. And if you chant with your heart, then you will get there. The material thing will disappear gradually. So you touched on it to say you need somebody to listen to. So the guru comes into that. So guru or the shiksha guru, you can listen to the guru or shiksha guru. They can advise you what's the best method which is relevant to your needs.
Yeah.
And this is the way Dhruva Maharaj got, the advice from Narada, and he progressed, and he got he got the Dhruva star. So I just wanted to add something on that.
Wonderful example. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for sharing. So it basically Krishna is saying, in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the 4 types of people who come to him. But so when, that's us in a way also, like when we feel distress, but the way we take shelter of Krishna, Krishna, once a devotee told me that Krishna appreciates when we take shelter of devotees. And I've noticed in my life, we all need someone to talk to. Yes, Avinash Prabhuji gave the wonderful example of if we chant with our heart as well, that can help for sure. But that alone, when we're too much in distress, may not help. So we have to look at our individual situation. Some people, they're so dependent on the holy name. That's why I said some people it can help. They can chant and they just say, Krishna, just help me see. Krishna, please help me surrender unto you. Krishna, please engage me in your service. Krishna, help me bring my heart closer to yours. That's another meaning of the Maha Mantra. And understand what you're trying to teach me in this. So I've also prayed to Krishna like this. Sometimes like, Krishna, why are you putting me through this? I know that you're trying to teach me something, but I haven't got the intelligence. Please give me the intelligence to see what is it you're trying to teach me. But I think also, in the context of Krishna consciousness, yes, it's okay to be distressed. That's going to happen. But as Avinash Prabhuji rightly said, we take shelter of devotees as well. That's also taking shelter of Krishna. And in my life also, when I was making that transition, and sometimes I would take shelter of non-devotees, especially when I was new. And now I have relationships with non-devotees, but they're not like close relationships. I don't ever give my heart. And I think that's so important, because what they will do is their ultimate goal is to, maybe they are our well-wishers, but they're trying to improve our material situation. But devotees, they're trying to improve your whole situation, your lifetime situation. And ultimately, they're trying to bring you closer to Krishna. So it's important also that when we're in times of difficulty, we don't reveal our minds to those who have a kind of materialistic tendencies, and instead reveal our minds to devotees, and whichever way we can, take shelter of Krishna. Could be worshipping the deity, pray to the deity. That's also very powerful. Sincerely with our heart, chanting, reveal to devotees, express our emotions. I know one devotee who, when they've gone through difficulties, they've gone to the deity and they've been mad at Krishna. So Krishna, I'm angry at you. So Krishna, why are you doing this to me? You better help me here. I'm really mad at you for putting me in this situation. And Krishna helped them. So I think, but I thought that was amazing, because they're honest, but they still turn to Krishna. And I thought that was quite nice. So yeah, like this, it's a very personal process. And ultimately, just we keep doing this, turning to Krishna, and we'll see that he does help us. He gets us through, maybe not in the way we want, but he'll get us through in the way that's most beneficial for us. And through that, our faith deepens. We come to this process of complete surrender. Not there yet, but we'll keep going together on this journey. And hopefully we can help each other keep surrendering to Krishna when we're going through difficulties. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Excellent explanation. Can I request Prahlad Prabhu? Prahlad Prabhu, is it possible for you to end the session? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna to all dear devotees. First, I'd like to start off by thanking His Grace Kamal Panchal Prabhu for giving us this wonderful class. Thank you, Prabhu, for joining in and giving us this wonderful lecture. I won't eat much of everyone's time because we are kind of late and we are a bit overextended. But thank you, Prabhu, for joining in and giving us this wonderful class. I would also like to thank the devotees for joining in as well and listening to His Grace Kamal Panchal Prabhu all the way until this time. It's 9:17 in Kenya. So thank you all for staying until the very end. So on behalf of ISKCON Eldoret, Prabhu, we would like to thank you. So I'd like to kindly request all the devotees assembled to please unmute yourselves and let's chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once for His Grace Kamal Panchal Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pitanam Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Grace Kamal Panchal Prabhu ki,
Jai.
Gaur Pramanande.
Haribo.
Evil.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.